Hi, good evening. How are you doing? Welcome to my daily session on various topics with my purpose or supporting my purpose of creating world class companies and exceptional leaders. And this week, yesterday, I could not do the live session because I was traveling back from uh, a place called as Anilari in Tamil Nadu back to Bangalore. So on the way, I was on the road, so I could not really do the presentation. Sorry for that. And last week, it was all about chakras that I spoke about. So today, I would be starting another series on mindset and culture. That's something which is different. So let me straight away jump into the topic. And then, as always, I request you to please give your comments and share that so that we can make it a interactive session. First, let me present you the contents of whatever I'll be speaking. I'll spread this over this week, maybe 1 or 2 days next week to start with the brain, our brain and mind. That will be the two topics which I'm going to address today. And after that, I will speak about mindset, in my understanding of mindset tomorrow. And the day after, which would be Thursday, I would be speaking about our culture. And Friday, I speak about our learning and how I would do it and what is my way of doing it using Duhop. So this is the brief contents of what I'm going to speak, and then let me directly jump into our brain. That is the first topic which I'm going to be talking about today, and then talk about our mind. These are the two topics. So let me now first share the presentation so that you can see the contents, our brain, our mind, our mindset, our culture, our learning, and our do-how. That's will be the content of my presentation this week for this series of presentations, live sessions. And let me start talking about our brain. Let me just present some of the information which I have put together. I've really not done much here. On the left side, you see the picture of our brain. It's a kind of a simulation, I would say. I don't think it's the actual photo, but it's a simulated photo of our brain, how it looks like. And what does the brain contain, basically? Brain has about 100 billion neurons. 100 billion is a big amount. 100 billion would be about 100 followed by nine zeros, or 10,000 crores of neurons in terms of crores, if you would like the number. And these are spread throughout the body. And we have about 120 to 140 million retinal receptors. 140 to 120 to 140 million would be about 12 to 14 crores of million, 12 to 14 crores of retinal receptors, 15,000 cochlear hair cells. These are the cells in our ear which make us hear and understand what somebody is telling, and 1.5 million sensory taste cells, 12 million receptor smell cells, 14,000 tactile touch receptors in our entire body. And for you to just get an idea in a different terminology or in a different wording, our brain is like 100 billion mini computers all working together. Just repeat the same wording again: 100 billion mini computers all working together, because each one is some kind of a intelligence on its own, which means that it's something which is humongous, something which is really unimaginable, which is really massive in size. For us to get an idea as to what this could mean, let us look at how many such computers were there in the world. In 2019, it is estimated that there were about 2 billion servers, desktops, laptops in the entire world. 50 times of the number of servers, desktops, laptops in the entire world would be the size, if I call each neuron as a mini computer, because each neuron is capable of transmitting the signals. You can also compare it with maybe a very, very minute transistor. I'm not sure whether that kind of a comparison is right or not. But in my opinion, it's something which is humongous. That's something which is important, because I keep telling this example every day. When we are walking, in the morning, all of you, or many of you, may be going for a morning walk. And if you imagine how many possibilities you have to fall down and how many times do you fall down, then the ratio is something phenomenal. You would have possibly easily in the morning when you go for a walk, hundreds or thousands of opportunities for you to fall down during a 1 hour walk. But how many times did you fall down? Zero, normally. That is because the brain is able to really process information and give you the feedback, get the muscles organized, get the muscles working in the right way, which is happening constantly. And that is because of the amount of capacity, the processing capacity the brain has. And some people say that, look, we only use about less than 5% of our processing capacity in our day-to-day lives, which is also very true, which means there is a huge amount of potential which is still left out, which is untapped. Let's see how to do that, and we'll talk about mindset tomorrow, not today. Today is only about introduction of the brain, which itself is a huge, humongous subject. So I'm not a specialist. I'm not a scientist. I only do this research as a hobby because, see, my drivers were always the following: to understand how to really get people to do what they know. And that's the reason why I went on searching and researching various topics, and I came to this. And mindset is what I understood, and based on that, my do-how is built up, and that's what I'm going to explain in this series. So let's now go to the, I call this the hardware. Just to conclude on that, brain is the hardware. Hardware in our body is the brain, which is the hardware, which is identical. All of us are born with the same hardware. That's again another interesting thing. All of us have 100 billion neurons. All of us have 120 to 140 million retinal receptors. So it's not something that we have different hardware. All of us have the same hardware. All of us have the best i7 or i9 or whatever the latest chip is that's there in our bodies, all of us. But the difference is in the mind. Mind is the software. I call it the software, which is something like what happens in an operating system. What you see on the right side is an animation of what is called as synapses. Let me explain that. Synapses are the connections which are happening between the neurons, and these connections are the ones which gives rise to memories, which gives rise to experiences, which gives rise to perceptions. All this is happening through connections, and these connections keep happening continuously. And when a baby is born, there would be about 2,500 synapses per neuron. This is something which is to be kept in mind, because that number is very important. When the baby is born, it has about 2,500 synapses. These synapses are required for the basic operating system, like, let us say, to make sure that the heart is beating, make sure that our digestive system is working, our sensory systems are working, we can listen, we can hear, we can see. So for all those things, some basic systems are required, and that's why the 2,500 synapses per neuron are there in the newborn baby, which increases to about 10,000 synapses per neuron in an adult, totaling to about 100 trillion synapses. Again, this is something which is humongous, which is something phenomenal, which is something unimaginable. For you to just get an idea, how many synapses would that be? I'll talk about that briefly. Before that, let me mention that an adult gets about 12 to 50,000 thoughts per day, which means every time a thought occurs to you, a new synapse is getting formed. That's the learning which is happening. Constantly, something or the other is going around, and every time it happens, a new learning happens, new synapse gets formed. Every day, about 10,000 synapses are getting formed, is what I understand. Now, imagine that the synapses are not getting formed. That means you are static. There is no change at all in your mind. Mind, they say, is a plastic setup, because it is something which is constantly changing. So let us imagine that it is not happening. It is constant. It is static. Then we start counting one synapses a second in our human body. Imagine that you are going to count one synapse every second. One synapse every second. Synapse is the connection between the two neurons. And this happens, what you see on the right side, every time a connection happens, there is a flow of current between the two neurons. And there's also some chemical exchange which happens there. And every time a connection happens, dopamine gets released, which is the kind of a happiness hormone, you can say. So that's why whenever we are learning, whenever we are excited, whenever we are seeing something new, we always are feeling happy, because that's what is creating the happiness, dopamine. But let me not talk about that now, but let me come back to the fact about 100 trillion synapses. Suppose that we start counting one synapse every second, and we want to count all the 100 trillion synapses in our body. You know how many years it's going to take, or how much time will it take? One synapse every second. and you're counting the human body, assuming that no new synapses are getting formed, it will take us 32 million years. Just hear me right. 32 million years. 3 2 followed by 6 zeros years, which would be how many generations? So it's something which is humongous, something which is really unimaginable. 32 million years is what is going to take if you're going to count each synapse one every second. That calculation you can also do and find out the same answer as I get. And that is something which is extremely important for us to understand the magnitude of the mind. So as we are learning, as we are growing, as we are experiencing new things, continuously synapses are getting formed. These are all getting stored, and that is getting stored mostly in the subconscious memory, because we don't have access to all this data. If you look at people getting hypnotized when they were in any hypnotic show, either live or online, you can see that people remember things about their childhood which is just there in the memory. Everything is there in the mind. And another interesting fact about the mind is that the subconscious mind senses the reality in about 250 microseconds. Microseconds is 1 divided by how much? 1 million. 1 divided by 1000 is millisecond. 1 divided by 1000, 1 divided by 1000 is again 1000 milliseconds is 1 millisecond divided by 1000 is 1 microsecond. So it is 1 divided by 1 million seconds would be a microsecond. Within 250 microseconds, our subconscious is capable of capturing the reality, and at the same time is able to process something. And that's the reason why we don't fall. I keep telling jokingly, it's not that there is what should I say, some kind of a mumbo jumbo happening. It's a fantastic system, an outstanding system. 250 microseconds is what it says for the subconscious to capture what's happening around you, and then the process. And what is interesting is it takes another 100 to 500 milliseconds. Now the unit got changed from micro, it became milliseconds, for the conscious mind to perceive the same thing. So if you are talking about conscious mind, it will take about half a second for you to perceive what's happening around you, whereas subconscious mind has processed the same thing, captured the same thing 1000 times or more than 1000 times in the same duration, just to get the magnitude. So it's really something where we really have to understand how the entire thing works for us to talk about mindset. And that, why I said I talk about mindset is to understand how to bridge the knowing and the doing gap. I'm a little crazy guy many a times because I always want to find the reason, and then it becomes easy for me to speak and explain. The other fact which is interesting is our subconscious mind prepares all our actions in real time. Whatever that we are doing is done in real time, 500 milliseconds before anything is done. So if I'm talking now, whatever I'm speaking is already prepared by the subconscious, ready for me to express that 500 milliseconds before I come to know of that, before I'm actually speaking and telling something to you. And I come to know of that, of course, I come to know of that about 200 milliseconds before telling something to you. So you understand, whatever I'm doing is being predicted by the subconscious continuously. So in reality, when somebody says that we are really looking at having free will, of course there is a free will. Of course there is a possibility of telling that, look, I am able to choose whatever I want to choose at my will. But that has to be done with tremendous amount of difficulty, because you only have a 200 millisecond window in real-time basis to really keep checking it. That means you should be extremely fast, extremely dynamic to be able to understand that point within that 0.2 seconds and change something. That's very, very difficult. The other day, I was presenting this to a set of senior professionals from Pune, and one gentleman, a very senior person, said that, look, this is good. You maybe we should look at type 1 and type 2, what is written by Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel Prize winner, and he talks about type 1 and type 2 thinking. Think fast and think slow. I think you must have heard of that book. And there, it's quite interesting that even if we say that we are consciously thinking, it is always driven by the subconscious. Subconscious is always controlling us, because even consciously thinking means that the subconscious is constantly predicting. Always you need to overcome that prediction, then only you can think freely. So therefore, free will is very, very difficult. It's not easy at all. Of course, possible, but extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. So with that, I try to end the presentation today on the mind. Mind, as I said, is a software which is outstanding machine, continuously learning software. This is an intelligent software. There is no need for any programming. It programs by itself, it learns continuously, and that's something which is phenomenal. And what is also interesting is a lot of these activities are done in the subconscious so that we don't really come to know what's happening. And all this happens because synapse is getting formed. And that's the key. And tomorrow onwards, I'll talk about my understanding as to how what mindset is all about. Once we know what mindset is all about, then we can also talk about how to change mindset. So with that, I end today's discussion. Thanks a lot for watching, and come back tomorrow to talk about mindset. My next slide also, I'll show you what I'm going to talk about mindset would be to start talking about how our brain captures all our experiences and memories. And that's something which is interesting. And then I go on to speak about what mindset is and how can mindset be used for the bridging of the gap between knowing and doing. How can we do that? That's the core theme of what I'm going to present in this week. Thanks a lot for watching. For those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. See you tomorrow, more or less the same time, 8:30 Indian Standard Time. Thank you and goodbye.